Alright, so it struck me today's a fairly average day, and it's a good day, and it's also a bad day in some ways, and it's pretty typical. So I thought we'd go over the day. Started out 8:15, garbage disposal. By the time I showed up, and it was quite a drive, but by the time I showed up, the guy said he had already fixed it. He had said that he had tried to already fix it before, but it wouldn't fix. When I got there, it was fixed, so I stuck my wrench on the bottom, made sure I didn't hear anything in there, turned it on, ran some water through it. It sounded great. Turned it off, put my hand in there just to feel around and make sure there wasn't anything. And then here's what I always do with any sink plumbing, whether I did anything or not, is I filled both sinks all the way up with plugs in the bottom, go underneath, make sure there's nothing's wet, wipe everything down with a dry rag, pull both the plugs. That forces a lot of water down through the pipes all at once, so there's no chance that you have a leak, because if you leave and there's a leak, and if that leak does some damage, of course there's a chance people might try to blame that on you and want you to fix it. So I always make sure if I touched anything plumbing related at the sink that there are absolutely no leaks. So the garbage disposal, it was already fixed, but my trip fee is $125. The guy didn't cancel ahead of time so that I wouldn't have to charge my trip fee. So I'm going to charge my $125 for that. And I'm just going to tell them exactly what I did. You don't have to lie to them. They understand that your time's worth money, because we are dealing with property management companies here. So they're used to this. So that's $125 for the day. Next job, the write-up was that there's an outlet in a closet that didn't work and a door that was getting stuck. So when I got there, first thing I did, because it was easiest and quickest, was looked at the door. It was junk. The deadbolt kept getting stuck. The handle, the knob itself, you had to really force it all the way. So I knew right off the bat I'm just going to throw a new one on there, and I'll tell you all what I put on there in a minute. The other one, though, the electric, so tested the outlet, sure enough, no electric. Breaker panel was right beside me, so I just flipped all the breakers off and back on, because sometimes a breaker can trip, and it's not going to be on the other side. It's going to remain on the side that it's on and still be tripped. So just to be sure, just flipped them all off, flipped them all back on. The tenant didn't mind. It wasn't resetting, all the clocks on his VCRs or anything. Didn't do any good. Went around to the other side of the wall, which is the kitchen, because that's where GFI outlets are going to be. And I don't know if you guys know this, but if you ever have an outlet that doesn't work, first thing you do really is look for GFIs. And they could be in the basement, they could be outside the home, they could be in the bathroom, the kitchen, anywhere. If you can just do a quick walkthrough and find any GFIs and make sure they're all reset, that's a big deal. It's not half the time, but like 40% of the time, that's going to be your problem. So you don't want to spend a lot of time troubleshooting when it's just a GFI. So anyways, that didn't work either. Stuck my meter in there just to make sure that maybe I didn't have like a good hot on one side, but no good neutral on the other. And that wasn't the case. So I pulled the outlet out and played around with where the wire goes in and listened, and I could hear it up above me banging around on the wall. So I knew it went up rather than sideways or somewhere else. There was an access hole to the attic, so I went up in there. It was pretty easy to find the wire coming out and then doing a loop straight back down to the circuit breaker panel. But in between, it had been cut on purpose. So I'm guessing there's no breaker going to it. And I did test that as well. There's no electricity to it, but I don't think it's hooked up to any breakers. I think it's some old unused line. Maybe it was an accident, I don't know. But what I did was there was a junction box right next to me up there, and I tested it, and that junction box went to the other outlets that are right down there in that area. So what I did was took my wire that had been diked, ran it into the junction box, tied it in with the other outlets and their wires, went back down, tested it out. It works. Now, if I were to bill that, actually strike the billing. I also went and did the door lock. I use Kwikset is the brand that I use, and I use their smart key security system. And I do this on every job. This is not really an optional thing. This is just how I do it. I always put a quick set smart key security in. The reason is because you can rekey those very quickly and very easily, and it's not hard to sell if your property management company wants you to use a $30 deadbolt and doorknob set instead of a $50 one. It's not hard to convince them that they should go with this one because it can be rekeyed literally in 30 seconds. So I put that smart key security on the door. That's a quick and easy 5-10 minute job. I do not a dozen a week, but I do a lot. Like sometimes a dozen a week, sometimes a little less, but they're just a normal part of my rotating inventory. So time-wise, I was only there an hour from the time I pulled up to the time I left. Maybe hour 10, hour 15, but basically an hour. And typically, if I'm only somewhere for an hour, I'm going to charge my normal $125 trip fee. This one, it went over a few minutes. Maybe I'd have done $150, $165. But here's the thing. I did electrical work. And this company in particular was actually kind of excited because they didn't know that I did electrical work. I found out because somebody asked me, do I do garbage disposals, which every handyman should do. And that's when I realized these guys don't really know the extent of what types of jobs they can send me. So I had sent them this long list. It's essentially, I do everything. Very few things I don't. So I need to bill this. 125 is what we start out with for sure. Probably would have gone to 150 because of the time. So, but because it was electrical, I'm probably gonna do 250. And the reason I'm going to do 250 is because normally what they would have needed to do, this is their normal daily operations, is they would send me, the handyman, out for the door that wouldn't shut properly or lock properly. And then they would send an electrician. So I would have charged 125 for the doorknob and the deadbolt. And then the electrician, without a doubt, would have charged over 200. So they'd be looking at 325 plus materials, which would have been just for the lock set. That makes it 375. So call it 400 bucks they would have spent. I'm charging them 250. That's one of the reasons that I take electrical jobs. I don't like them, but I take them because I can bill more for them. So now we're at 250 for the day. I think I finished that one at 11:20 something. So that's before lunchtime. I'm at, where am I at? 375. Then I went to Elm Street. Elm Street is a whole bunch of siding that's rotten down near the bottom. I'm probably just gonna put like a 1x8 over that and seal it up real good and paint it. But there's one wall where the top is all jacked up and water is leaking down into the inside of the wall. So those 3 4x8 sheets there need to be replaced. And a bunch of window trim needs to be replaced, and then there's a weird window that's not used anymore. They've walled over it on the inside, and on the outside there's a piece of plywood stuck in where it goes that's all rotten, so I'm going to replace that. But I didn't make any money on that. I don't charge this property management company for quotes, and the reason is they don't waste my time with quotes. And y'all have to remind me in the comments or whatever, so later on I do need to do one on charging for quotes. But I didn't charge anything for that. Next one was a leaky, or a sink that wouldn't drain. And long story short, I snaked it out to 25 feet with a power snake. I did this 4 separate times, and no matter what I did, this sink would not drain. Now, what I'm going to do with this one is I found out from the homeowner that a different plumbing company, they had already sent a plumber out, and the plumber told them the same thing that I'm now telling them. So had they not known anything and had it been closer to my house, this is one I probably would have done for free. I'd have just said, hey, sorry, I snaked it, I couldn't get it, no charge. But because they didn't tell me that somebody else had already snaked it out 25 feet, and because it was literally 50 minutes from home, I'm still going to charge my $125 for that one. Now I'm at a job for a sliding screen door. Actually, you can see the new door behind me. Apparently it came off a bunch of times. It got all bent up, and when it got all bent up, you can't really bend them back. So I'm just putting a whole new one in. Now I do have, because I haven't seen this door, But in case it's not actually all bent up, maybe it's just skewed a little bit because there is tension on that screen. So sometimes these things can still be square, but be flexible. If you've ever done like a screen on a window, you know what I mean. Now, if you need to replace any wheels, I always use these. And if you can see that it's metal around this bracket, that is very important because the plastic ones break all the time. And these are pretty standard. These are sold at Home Depot all over the place. It has the metal wheel on bottom too, not the plastic one. The price difference is negligible and you're not paying for it anyways. The customer is. So I'll try these if I need to, but otherwise that's going on. And for this one, I know this takes less than an hour, so it's $125. And then after this, I'm going to change some TP, some toilet paper holders. And they also want me to let them know if it looks like these have come off because of tenant neglect and abuse, or if it's just wear and tear. But I can tell you with wear and tear, toilet paper holders don't fall off the wall with normal wear and tear if they're installed right. However, I'm almost certainly going to tell them that it's not the tenant's fault, and the reason I'm going to tell them that is because I'm going to tell the tenants that I'm supposed to report whether or not it's their fault, and ask them if they remember what happened. And this is just going to sort of jog their memory to go, oh yeah, I probably should not be breaking things in this house because I could have to pay for it, but this guy's doing me a favor. Unless it's obvious. I mean, if they're just ripped out, then I'm going to say they were just ripped out. But if it's not clear, I always err on the side of letting the person who owns investment properties, which means they probably have some money. If it's not obviously abuse or neglect, I'm going to err on the side of the rich guy paying for it rather than the poor tenant. And it all depends on a million factors, but I try to err on that side. So when I do that one, that's going to be $125. So, four, that is a $750 day. One of the jobs of which was just writing a quote, so it could have been more than a $750 day, or it could have been less if I couldn't have fixed that electrical problem. You never know. So, $750 day. This is a pretty average day. I had it relatively well scheduled out, but I didn't have every detail scheduled. But there's a good idea what a handyman can make in a day, and I'm working hard, but I'm not busting my ass. I'm not killing myself. I'm not hurting myself. I'm just staying busy, starting early, finishing late. So there you go, $750 day for a handyman, just trying to unclog sinks, fixing one electrical problem, putting in a sliding screen door, TP holders. These are all standard jobs that you're gonna do once or twice or more times a week if you get busy.